Hi, friends. Welcome back to Oracle Aura. My name is Jada, and I will be your host today. Happy New Year, by the way. Happy New Year. It's 2021. Woohoo! I am super excited that it's a new year. Not only is it a new year, but 2020 is over. And so many valuable lessons came in 2020 for me and for the world in general. But I think we can all agree that it was a pretty chaotic year. And usually, the new year comes with this excitement of a fresh start. But especially after a year that just came with so much chaos, it feels extra good to head into a new year, knowing that you've got kind of this fresh start, this fresh trip around the sun, right? So, since it is a new year, I would really love to talk about manifesting and what we're looking to manifest for the new year, 2021. What does it hold for you? That is completely up to you to decide. So, I just want to take a moment to get real with you guys. I haven't put out an episode of this podcast in a month. I wasn't logged into my Instagram for 2 months. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, it felt really good for me to unplug and just take the pressure off myself. I was trying so hard to push and force so much that I wasn't in a state of flow anymore. And there was actually a point where I got sick. Not with COVID, but my body just couldn't handle the stress that I was putting it under anymore. And I had to take a moment to retract and retreat and get some clarity. And with that clarity, I have decided I'm going to put out an episode of Oracle Aura podcast every single week in 2021. And I'm so excited for all of the things that I have planned for this podcast. And I've really just simplified, taking a lot off my plate, not thinking so much about coaching right now and just focusing more on the podcast, which feels really good and really aligned to me. So ending 2020, I ended with all that clarity. Just like people said, 2020 was going to be the year of, and I air quote as I say this, clear vision. 2020 was going to be the year of clear vision. That was kind of the consensus in the spiritual community. And I'm not going to lie, the first couple times I heard that, I rolled my eyes. I was like, yeah, okay, guys, like 2020 clear vision, haha. But on a grander scale, it really was like that. I was pretty surprised. Nobody could have predicted the way that everything went down. But, there were a lot of lessons in 2020. Like, a lot. And for me, personally, the main one was just to slow down. You can actually speed things up by slowing down. When we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off, we're not getting anything done, right? There's kind of this glorification of busy that just got so overwhelming for so many people. Think how many people including yourself, that before COVID and all of the, quarantining, self-isolating thing happened. Think how many people that were just working themselves to death. We're just completely overworking themselves, overrunning themselves, just so busy all the time. And having that time to kind of like isolate and slow down, I think for a lot of people really just showed us like, wow, it feels good to rest, and it's vital to rest. It's important to rest. And just seeing people outside riding their bikes and stuff is like amazing. I feel like I'm seeing so many more people outside now, and it almost seems that in this dark shadow of a time, it really gave us as a human species clarity on what's important. And speaking of what's important, setting an intention for a new year to me is important. I know a lot of people hear the phrase New Year's resolution and they kind of roll their eyes, right? There's so many people who just go hard at the gym for 2 weeks and then they quit, or they do their diet for like 10 days and they're like, F this, I want a candy bar. But a New Year's resolution doesn't have to be this like stereotypical, I set a goal and then I quit it by January 17th kind of thing. It can be more of an intention, and it can be really a nice way just to move into your next, our next collective trip around the sun together with some intention and some clarity on what you're trying to create for yourself, because we really are all creating our own reality to some degree. And kind of getting into manifestation a little bit and what that is. To me, manifestation is co-creating with the universe, right? So half of it is us showing up and us putting in the work. And the other half of it is being receptive and being in that yin energy where we're saying, okay, I am allowing this to happen. And again, I think that's what 2020 showed us. It showed us how to slow down and how to be in that receptive state. So now in 2021, it's time for us to see what kind of balance we can bring to the table as we're manifesting. How can we show up and create and take the time to be in that restful or playful energy where we're saying, I feel good, I'm attracting more of what feels good. So as far as setting an intention for the new year, I call them New Year's intentions instead of New Year's resolutions, because I'm not like, I don't feel like I need to change myself for the new year. Like I'm not trying to, how do I say this? We don't need to become like a brand new version of ourselves. We are becoming new versions of ourselves every day, but you don't need to be fixed, I guess. That's what I'm saying. You don't need to be like, you're not broken and you need to be fixed. It's more like, okay, how can I heal a little bit, or how can I feel better? It's not that you're broken. It's not that there's anything wrong with you. It's just about living life intentionally as a conscious human being. That's why we're conscious human beings, no? Like, we have the ability to consciously create. So why not do that? So just to give a few examples of New Year's intentions, mine in the past have ranged from, really broad things to really specific things. Over the last few years, the ones that pop out to me, one year, my New Year's intention was to love myself. And I remembered that one all year long. And I think it's just because that one was so simple yet so impactful. To really focus a year on learning how to love myself was one of the most healing things I've ever done for myself. And it really, really set the bar for how I allow other people to treat me. And in doing so, I've attracted people into my life who are kind, loving people. And they're not using me and they're not mean to me because I'm not doing those things to myself anymore. What are some other examples? One year, my resolution was to go on more adventures. And actually, I think in 2020, my intention was to go on more adventures. And ironically, that was the year that everything closed down. But I ended up going to try ayahuasca for the first time. And be it that was only 2 hours away, but let me tell you, that was definitely an adventure. So our intentions can be really specific or they can be really broad, but it's just nice, I think, to go into a new year with some kind of clarity as to what you want to create. So as we go through this podcast today, I'm going to give you guys some prompts, kind of like workshop style. because I just hosted a workshop a few days ago called Manifestation Magic, and it was all about manifesting your desires for the new year. Now, in that workshop, we did do some yoga and stuff to release blockages in the body and all of that. Obviously, we won't be able to do that on a podcast, but I'm just going to give you guys a few little journal prompts. And if you are listening and you're in a place where you can write, maybe you want to go ahead and grab a journal. Or if you're driving, maybe you don't do that. Just focus on the road. So before we even get into what it is that we want to create, I want to touch on gratitude. And gratitude can often be this thing that we roll our eyes at, right? Oh my God, everybody in the spiritual community talks about gratitude, right? Why are they talking about it? Because it fucking works. The more we focus on what we're grateful for, the more those things multiply, and the more things that we are grateful for show up in our lives. So if you have a journal, go ahead and write down one thing that you're grateful for. The very first thing that comes to your mind. One thing that you're grateful for. And then once you write down that thing that you're grateful for, you're going to write down 3 reasons why you're grateful for that one thing. So feel free to pause this and write down those 3 things. So again, whenever we're focusing on gratitude, it's like a magnet, right? We're attracting more and more and more of what we're grateful for. So according to the law of attraction, according to the teachings of Abraham Hicks, like attracts like. The feelings that we are emitting out into the universe are attracting more and more and more of those feelings. So whenever we're picking one thing that we're grateful for and we're listing the 3 reasons why we're grateful for that thing, we're really getting into the feeling of being grateful. We're not just saying, I'm grateful for coffee, I'm grateful for my boyfriend, I'm grateful for blah, blah, whatever. We're saying, I'm grateful for my boyfriend because he shows up for me in a conscious way. And we're getting into those feelings. So whenever you're getting into those feelings, think about your emotions as kind of a radio signal, a radio frequency sent out into the universe. And whenever you send those emotions out into the universe, they're being reflected back to you in the form of more things to be grateful for. So now that we've kind of touched on what it is that we're grateful for, we'll start to get into intention setting. So just for a moment, I want you to take all of those reasons why you can't do something and just ball them up and toss them to the side, because we don't need those right now. Maybe we can come back and visit them and say, okay, why am I feeling that way? But all of those limiting beliefs, all of those air quotes, realistic thoughts, we're going to just set off to the side. So I want you to take a moment to just ask yourself, what does my soul want to create in 2021? It can be a project, it can be a feeling, it can be a relationship, it can be a career goal, anything that you want to create in 2021. And again, if something comes up and says, oh, I can't do that, just bypass that for now. And I'm not usually for bypassing. Usually I'm for dealing with things that come up, but we're going to come back to that. So just take a moment and ask yourself, what does my soul want to create in 2021? Don't overthink it. First thing that comes to your mind, get it on the paper. Again, feel free to pause this and write that down before we move on to the next part. And even if you're driving and following along, you can always feel free to just pause this and think about whatever it may be. You don't have to write it down yet, but I would recommend revisiting this and writing it down later on, because there's just something about writing down your goals that makes them so much more real. I actually was reading in Marie Forleo's book, Everything is Figureoutable, that you are 40% more likely to achieve a goal that you've written down. So once you've taken a moment to do that, now we're going to get into the reason why that is what you want. It's so easy for someone to say, I want to quit cigarettes, or I want to create this business, or whatever it may be. But unless you know the reason why you want to do something, it can be really difficult to maintain a level of discipline and motivation. So finding your why is honestly something that's been really transformative and inspiring for me, because my whys always get way deeper than I anticipated. And I find that whenever I do this exercise in workshops, people are always surprised by what their actual why is. I'll give you guys an example. One of my friends has a business where she creates essential oil blends, and she was feeling all of this pressure as to how she was moving along in her business and how long it was taking her, and finding the motivation, and it just wasn't there. So I did this exercise with her. It's called 7 Levels Deep, and we started with, why do you want to have an essential oils business? And it ended with, I want to provide feelings of safety and calmness to people. So it was something so much deeper than she anticipated. And now that she has that why, she has that driving force, that soul behind what she's doing. So I'm going to do my best to explain this 7 Levels Deep exercise. So 7 Levels Deep, basically, if you have a piece of paper, or if you're with a person, this works even better with another person, but if you need to do it by yourself, you totally can. So you're going to just look at your intention, and maybe you just do this with a part of your intention for now. So let's say my intention is to record an episode of Oracle Aura podcast every single week. I'll ask myself on the paper, why do I want to record an episode of Oracle Aura podcast every week? Okay. And that's number one. Number one, why do I want to, and then whatever your intention is. Then when you come up with the answer for that, let's say my answer is, let me think about this. Why do I want to put out an episode of Oracle Aura podcast every week? I want to put out an episode of Oracle Aura podcast every week to keep an open line of communication with my community, and to share the wisdom that flows to me and through me. And then I'll take that answer to share the wisdom that flows to me and through me, and I'll say, why do you want to share the wisdom that flows to you and through you? And that's question number 2. So you're just going to continue this process of taking the answer to your last question and creating your next question out of it. And you're going to do that 7 times. No more, no less. 7 times, not 5, not 8, not 2, always 7. And whatever your 7th answer is, that is your 7th level deep. That is your why. So whenever you get to about 3 or 4, you're going to get to this point of, I don't know. And that's when you're getting out of your head and into your heart space. So that's the time to not really overthink it. Just feel. And the very, very, very first thing that comes to your mind, that's your answer. So if you have paper, feel free to write this down and do it. If you're with another person, this works amazing with another person. But again, if you are alone, you can feel free to do this by yourself. So as we take a moment, we've, set our intention, and we've looked for our why. Again, if you're listening and you want to do this, please pause this and take a moment to figure out your why. You may be thinking to yourself, okay, I figured out my what and I figured out my why, but how am I going to do that? And I just want to share this quote with you guys from the book, The Secret, which is about the law of attraction. And the quote says, "The hows are the domain of the universe. It always knows the shortest, quickest, fastest, most harmonious way between you and your dream." Mike Dooley said that. And that really comes back to the idea of surrender. Surrender can feel like, when we hear it, right? We hear surrender and we automatically think giving up. To me, it's like, oh, they surrendered in the war. They surrendered in the game. They quit. And that's not what surrender is when we're talking about this specifically. Surrender is being open to the universe's plans for you. In the last couple days, I've had to really exercise surrender, and it's not always easy, you know? It's not easy to feel like you don't have complete control, but honestly, the universe's plan for you is so much bigger than you can even realize. There are miracles and interventions that are going to happen in your life that if you're not open to, you might not receive them. So you've got to just be open to a certain degree to the things that are going to happen in life. So for me personally, I got a little bridge job so I could focus on this podcast and not be so stressed out about finding coaching clients and doing all of these things with my coaching business. I really just want to focus on this podcast. So I went out, I got a bridge job, and after training for a few days, they told me that my availability didn't work with what they were looking for. And honestly, right before they texted me, I was just telling my boyfriend, you know, as much as I want to like this job, I just don't like it. Like, I just don't want to be there. And then an hour later, I received a text message saying, "Hey, Jada, you know, thanks so much for coming, but we don't think your availability is going to work." And it really just went to show that we're manifesting and creating at such a rapid rate sometimes, but it still felt like rejection, you know, even though I wanted that, it felt like, oh, okay, well, I thought I had this level of control, but maybe I don't. And that, I think, was really just teaching me to let go and just accept that sometimes the universe has a bigger plan, and I just have to trust that everything is always working out for the highest good of everyone involved. So now we've located we've identified rather your intention, and you've gotten to your why. And congratulations, by the way. That's a lot of clarity to have on the first week of 2021 or whenever you're listening to this. And so now we're going to go back and revisit all those little thoughts that came up whenever you said, I want to start a business or whatever it is. Maybe there was something that came up to you that said, that's not realistic, or that, I don't know if I can do that in a year, or whatever it may be. So let's take a moment just to write about what came up whenever you thought those things. What were the doubts? What were the fears? What came up? So just take a moment and, again, pause this, write those things down, and just identify them. So after you've identified your fears and your doubts that came up, I want you to go back and look at them and ask yourself, when was the first time I heard that? Because oftentimes the fears and the doubts and the concerns and the worries that we have didn't really come from us. They're things that we've adapted from society, from our parents, from other people. And by acknowledging that, we don't have to blame those people for burdening us with their limiting beliefs. But as conscious human beings, we have the ability to look back and say, okay, that's not really vibing with me anymore. That's not really helping me move in the direction that I want to go. And so I'm no longer going to carry that. So I want you to just take a moment, look at all those fears and limiting beliefs, and ask yourself 2 questions. 1, when was the first time I heard that? And 2, is that something I want to carry with me in 2021? So again, just feel free to take a moment, pause this, and write that down. So as we move forward, I just want to touch on fear and doubt again. They're less like big scary monsters and more like the child who's afraid of the monster under the bed. So our fears aren't something that we need to be avoiding. Our fears are more like something that we need to sing to sleep. Think of your fears or your doubts or your worries or your concerns, those things that are deeply ingrained into you that you've been carrying around for too long. And next time they come up, instead of just bypassing them and saying, no, you're not welcome here, maybe try speaking to it like it's a child or like it's a friend that's trying to help you. Like whenever those fears that come up, like for me, whenever that dark thought came up that said, well, they're rejecting you, I can say to myself, okay, or I can say to that fear, okay, I understand where you're coming from. That does feel a little bit like rejection, but ultimately, I know what's best for me. I decided that before it even happened. It doesn't matter how it happened. I accept that there is a bigger plan for me than I can even realize in this universe. So, now comes the good part, the manifesting part. Woohoo! I guess kind of all of this is manifesting, really. It's all part of it. So visualization is freaking awesome. If you guys listen to Vivid Vibes podcast, which is the podcast I was hosting before with my friend Laura, we did a whole episode about visualization. Your brain does not know the difference between you visualizing something and you already having accomplished it. They actually did a study in the 1980 something Olympics, one of the Olympic games in the 80s. They wrote about this in The Secret. But they hooked up some athletes to machines and had them visualize running their races, and all the same muscles fired as when they were actually doing these exercises, playing these games, running these races. So your mind does not know the difference between you doing something and you visualizing something. Therefore, the more you visualize yourself achieving whatever your intention may be, the more likely you are to actually bring it to life, because your mind says, well, I've already done this. Of course I can do it again. And all of a sudden, all of those fears, all of those doubts, all of those worries, they get quieter and quieter and quieter because your mind becomes more confident with the idea of actually having achieved this. So before you even take a moment to visualize, first of all, visualization can be a practice that you incorporate every day before you go to sleep. Before you even go to bed, just lay in your bed, take a moment, close your eyes, and visualize your intention as if it's already come to life. Just take a moment and feel the feelings of already having accomplished it. So in order to get you into that space, I'm going to have you do another journal prompt, and it's going to be a letter to the universe. You're going to write in past tense as if you've already brought your vision to life. So for example, I'm going to write a letter as if I've already recorded an episode of Oracle Aura podcast every single week for a year. I'm going to write a letter as if it's December 31st, 2021. And I'm going to say how I feel, where I am, who I'm with, write descriptive, emotive words and write in past tense as if it's already happened. So I'll say things along the lines of, I am so grateful, thankful, and happy that I have recorded and released an episode of Oracle Aura podcast every single week this year. I feel so accomplished, and I'm so grateful for the community that's gathered together, these humans who just want to see a better world and want to raise their vibrations and just hold space for the people around them. I am so grateful, thankful, and happy to be a part of this community. So yeah, if you're listening and you're journaling along, again, take a moment to pause this and write a letter to the universe in past tense with lots of emotive words as to how it feels to already have brought your vision to life. All right. So just to kind of recap, you came up with your intention. You found the reason why you want that intention. You learned where your limiting beliefs are coming from. And you've already written a letter to the universe saying thank you for having achieved this thing. So long as you can do your best to stay in alignment, and of course, take those little baby steps each day, you're going to get there. And even if this thing doesn't happen within a year, even if it takes longer than a year, know that you are on your way. Know that whatever it is that you want to manifest is already in your vortex and it wants to come to you. The last and final step of manifestation is allowing whatever it is to come to you. Now, I say manifestation magic because sometimes it truly does feel like magic, but it's a dance. Half of it is you showing up. 50% is you showing up. The other 50% is you trusting that it's happening, believing that it's happening, and it will happen. So as we wrap up this episode of the podcast, I would really love to just take a moment to visualize. So again, if you're driving, revisit this. Please don't close your eyes while you're driving. If you're not driving, go ahead and just take a moment to close down your eyes and let your hands face down on your knees or your thighs. If you're sitting in a chair, uncross your legs and let your feet touch the floor. And just take a moment to tune into the breath, taking some nice deep breaths into the lowest part of the belly. Making your exhale even longer than your inhale. And with your eyes closed, start to see your intention for 2021 already coming to life. See yourself living this as your reality. Start to let the feelings come up in your body as to what it feels like to already have accomplished this, to already be living this. Bring your hands over your heart and just hold on to this feeling. Letting this feeling overwhelm you, filling up your entire body, all the way from the crown of the head to the tips of the toes. And slowly bring the hands back down to the thighs. Take a nice deep inhale in through the nose. And sigh it out. 2 more breaths just like this. Inhaling love. Releasing what is not. Inhaling acceptance. Releasing what is not. Slowly bat your eyes open. And just take a moment to thank yourself for taking the time to get clear on your intentions for 2021. This year will be whatever kind of year that you decide it will be. We can't control everything around us, but we can make the decision to come back to the authentic inner peace that exists at the very, very core of every single one of us. Thank you so much for listening today, guys. I really appreciate you showing up, and I am so excited to show up for you guys this year. Namaste, and again, Happy New Year. Bye, guys.